right, so today we have day 3 about talking about place value, and today we're gonna kind of expand our understanding of it, hopefully, and we're going to be talking about powers of 10 when it comes to place value and what that has to do. So we're going to be looking for patterns. We talked about patterns yesterday in class and multiplying by factors of 10, if you remember. And so we are going to continue that and continue looking for patterns, because patterns are very important when it comes to place value and math in general. So here we go. We have just a box here, and I'm going to label it. I'm not going to have my decimal yet, because we're not going to go into tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, but we're just going to do tens. So I'm just going to throw it up on the top, and we'll start with 10. And the quick question that I just want to ask is, what times 10 equals 10? So I'm going to throw it out there, let you think about it. And if you said 10 times 1, you are totally correct. So 10 times 1 equals 10, right? And so as we go through this, I'm just going to add some, and we'll talk about it. So the next one is, it's first tens, and then we have hundreds. So we ask ourselves, what factors of 10 will equal 100? In this case, it's 10 times 10. Now, maybe you've noticed a pattern, maybe you haven't, but let's see once we add the third row. So the third row is going to be the thousands place, right? And so thousands is 10 times 10 times 10. So it's 3 factors of 10, right? And if we add the next one, which is 10,000, would be 4 factors of 10. And 100,000 would be 5 factors of 10, or 3 factors of 10 and one more set. And then we have the last one, which is millions, right? And that is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or it's 1,000 times 1,000. You see that? So we can match this one up with this one, right? So this is part and this is part, so it's 1,000 times 1,000. So there's a couple different ways that we can look at this. Now, when we look at this, my question for you is, how many factors of 10 are we multiplying by? How many factors of 10 are we multiplying by? And so really, that's what we want to answer today. That's what we want to answer. How many factors of 10 are we multiplying by? And in this case, I'm going to do it in dark gray. But 10 times 1, we are multiplying by 1 factor of 10. Do you see this one? Do you see any other factors of 10? You should say no. You see a 1, but we only have 1 10, right? So in this case, we do something. We can use what we call powers. Okay, and so when we do this, we want to visualize how many factors of 10s we have. So if we expand this up here, right, and we go up here, and then 100, we can say 100 is equal to 10 times 10. So how many factors of 10 are we using? Well, there are 2, right? There's 1 there and 1 there. So we have 2 factors of 10. So then if I went over here and I said, well, how many factors of 10 do we multiply when we get 100,000, right? And so 100,000 is equal to 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So in this case, it would be 5 factors of 10. Okay, so pause it wherever you want, just in case you're a little confused, or if you want to rewind it. But factors of 10 is every time we multiply by 10, they're factors, right? When we multiply 2 numbers together, both of those numbers that we're multiplying are factors. So for instance, 6 times 4, 6 is a factor and 4 is a factor, and both of them are factors of each other, right? So factors of 6 or factors of 4. So when we multiply, they are factors, okay? So in this case, we're talking about factors of 10, right? So when we start to look at this, we need to define the term exponent. Okay, this is super important. So if you stop anywhere, I would stop here. In fact, you can stop and research what an exponent is, and then come back, and then you're going to know it. Google it if you like. So the term exponent is used to represent how many times we use a number. And in this case, it's going to represent how many times we use 10 as a factor. Okay? So in this case, exponents are going to be the number of times that we use 10. So for instance, we can say that 10 times 10 is 10 squared. Right? So 10 times 10 is 10 squared, which means that 10 times 1 is just 1/10, so we can write it as 10 to the first power, or 10 with an exponent of 1. So the exponent tells us how many factors of a number we are multiplying by. So in this case, this is 2. So what is the pattern as we go on, right? So in thousands, it's 10 to the third power. 10,000s would be 10 to the fourth power, 100,000, 10 to the fifth power, and the infamous 1 million is 10 to the sixth power, always. All right? So before we move on from this, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. And before we go on, I have a question for you, okay? So let's see if you can figure this out. So this is for bonus points. I'm going to put it up there for bonus points. So if you know it, awesome. If you don't, that's okay. But I will give you bonus points if you can figure this out. Okay? So why don't we give this a try? So here is your question. What is a googol? Googol. So I want you to see if you can figure that out. That's bonus points. I will give you 5 extra bonus points if you figure that out. So what is a googol? That is your problem for today. Okay. So now I'm just going to throw it in there, and then we're going to move on. So we're moving on. So as we talked about 10. We talked about exponents. We talked about factors of 10. A factor of 10 would be 10 times 10, right? These are factors of 10, and we did it twice, which is 10 squared. So if something says write 10 to the fifth power as a product of 10s, right? Product is our answer. We would know that 10 to the fifth power, if we wanted to go the other way, would be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 5 times. So we can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the same thing goes with the one previously. 10 squared is the same as 1, 2, right? And when we write exponents, as long as it's the same number, which means even if it was 6 to the third, right? Exponents means that we can multiply those. And in this case, we can do it in with tens. So we're looking at factors of 10 because we're dealing with place value, and place value goes up by 10, right? If we go back to our original picture here, it goes up by tens. What's 1 times 10? 10. What's 10 times 10? 100. So every time we're doing that, it's going to jump by tens, right? And we've talked about that in class. So that's what's happening there. So if you didn't catch the bonus question, go back and look and pause it there and see if you can Google it and figure out what it is. Otherwise, hopefully that helps your understanding of factors of 10 and also your understanding of what an exponent is.